Good day, everyone. My name is Razvan. I'm the OSS Community Manager for the Unikraft project. It's my pleasure to give you an update of what's been happening in the community and where are we heading with the Unikraft project. The talk was supposed to be titled Unikraft Weather Report. This was traditionally being delivered by Simon Kunzer, our, chief developer. Now I'm going to take over, and since I'm most focused on the community, I also integrate some of the community items, not only the technical ones. So for the next slide, please, a bit of intro for those of you who aren't aware. Unikraft is this fast Unikernel Development Kit. What it does is, as you see here in the screen and on the GitHub page, it allows you to create custom configurable Unikernel images that you can run as a virtual machine. The goal being that you would create a minimal virtual machine unencumbered by all the subsystems that you would have, let's say, in your typical Linux development. You do tailoring of it. You can make choice between components, scheduling, allocators, networking stack, whatever is required for your application. And then these components have multiple, let's say, implementation. There's a common API for scheduling, a common API for allocation. You select among those, and then based on those, you create your own image. The entire thing is open source. It's on the BSD license, and you can see there are a lot of repos. As part of the image, you can see there are 181 repos. That's because, so core repos, there's a core Unikraft repo, there's documentation one and some others. The other ones are imported components from existing libraries, for example, Python interpreter, libsodium, standard C library, Redis, all applications that have been ported on top of Unikraft, and then they are now located in a repository in the Unikraft organization. Next slide, please. What I want to preview is what's been happening during the past year. So if you can go to the next slide, please. This is our, we did a lot of work on community side, and this is what's been happening during the past 2 years. Up until some time, there was the GitHub was only used as a mirror. But starting from 2020, we moved to GitHub. And as you can see, there's been a quite exponential growth in the number of stars in the repo. This is due to continuous and constant involvement and passionate involvement through a number of people in the community. I'm going to share you some numbers to see how that's happening. You can see that at the beginning of 2022, there's kind of a very large increase. This was part of our, if I recall, 0.6 or 0.7 release, and that got a bump on Hacker News. And based on that, on Hacker News, there are a lot of questions, a lot of people that started and wanted to know more about Unikraft. On the next slide, you're going to see some numbers of what's been happening with before and what's the current status in. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it now. Yeah, on Unikraft. So this on the left, this is what was the state 18 months ago in March 2021. About 200 GitHub stars. We were using Mattermost server. This was a bit difficult because it requires some sort of invite from us to join. There had been 5 releases in close to 4 years. And this was kind of the average number of commits and contributions. What I want to point out is that the last 2 items haven't changed so much. So kind of the project is maturing. The number of contributions is fairly constant. We are also taking a larger number of, let's say, action items to improve the project, not so much to add new features. We are looking into debugging, adding documentation, doing tests, improving the coding style, making improvements, security and performance improvements. But what's been happening is kind of the first 3 items is more on the community side, and what's been happening to increase the visibility and the engagement of the community. So for that, you can see that we are now actually, I think we are now 941, 942 stars. So there's been a huge increase in the number of stars and project visibility. This was due to us also increasing our release schedule. So you can see now there are 10 releases in 18 months. We updated our release plan and the way the community works such that every 2 months there will be a release. So increase the frequency, make sure then that most of the PRs make it, and we have frequent featureful releases. This was also doubled by the move to Discord. We moved to Discord about 1 year ago, so 1 year and maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And this allowed a lot of people to join. There's kind of a constant stream of people joining Discord, checking how things are working, asking for support, and also being part of the events that we organize, as you are going to see later. These kind of items were key factors in increasing the project visibility and getting a healthy number of contributors to the project. I'm going to go to some key items. So all these items on regarding Discord community and documentation you're going to see, these were factors contributing to the evolution of the community. So this is our Discord channel. We have multiple channels. Each particular topic that we cover in Unikraft has its own channel. There are also role channels. We have event channels. The benefit of Discord is that it's easy to access. You have both video calls, so we can do video calls, community calls happen over here. There are a lot of bots integration, so we have announcement bots that are synced with the calendar invites. They send periodic notifications. All of these actions happen here. It's easy to create new channels. There are private channels, there are public channels, text, audio. All of these are part of the Discord experience, and it's the essential tool that we use to keep the community together for once, and also attract potential new users and help them around with Unikraft. The other item is on GitHub governance. We have now a repo on governance. This lays out some key rules on the way the community works. And also, we are now heavily using GitHub features such as GitHub code owners, CI/CD components from GitHub, and also the recent, this was being improved in the last year, GitHub projects. This is what you see here, allowing you easy management of tasks. What we have here, each release has its own view of the PRs and issues at order. There are multiple such as these types of projects. Each particular subtrack has its own, and it's easy to manage within the community, knowing which items are happening at which point and who are owners for these items. This is also related to some automation that's happening, meaning that if you want to be part of a sub-team, what we call this a special interest group in the community, you simply create a PR and you'll be part of that team. And also there is an automated component that, based on those special interest groups, assigns people to new PRs and new issues. So for example, if there's a PR dealing with scheduling and you are part of the scheduling group, you would be assigned as a reviewer or as an assignee to that particular PR. So heavily using GitHub governance and GitHub features to automate as much as possible and manage the community and its projects. The other one is the use of community roles. So up until maybe 1 year ago, everything was more or less flat, meaning everyone did what they could, and it was kind of a peer-to-peer. We have now moved to something more hierarchical. So there is a group of maintainers who are allocated particular parts of the project, and they own those. They make sure that everything happens okay. They are usually the ones that do the final approval on the PRs and ensure that everything works properly. We are now creating an OSS roadmap. An OSS roadmap is composed of tracks, and each track has an owner and a tech lead. An owner is the person who makes sure that happens, and the tech lead is the one that makes it happen. So the tech lead is a technical person. The owner is more, let's say, of what you may see of as a product owner or as a project owner in a given company. This allows to have specific roles and people to contact to talk about a given track as part of the roadmap. There's a reviewer role. The reviewer role is the one that's going to be assigned on PRs. Once again, if that person is part of a given special interest group, they would be assigned as reviewers to a given PR once that is opened. And also there's we have recently created the community leadership roles, and we have multiple responsibilities. There's a community lead for CI/CD, there's a community lead for GitHub and governance, there's another one for documentation, there's another one for hackathons, there's another one for blog posts, and one for releases, and each of those takes care of that particular view in the community. This is doubled, as you're going to see soon, by periodic meetings of maintainers, of community leads, and then meetings in each particular technical group. And speaking of that, so we have this happening on the Discord channel. There, as I said, there are channels per topic inside the project, and there are all channels per different working groups. And this is doubled by meetings that happen weekly or once every 2 weeks on on specific topics, technical topics. There is a weekly community meeting where everyone gathers and we discuss what are current items, important items, questions from everyone, and plans for the next release or for the next weeks. There is a maintainers meeting, and there is also a community leaders meeting, making sure that everything works on track. The maintainers meeting is mostly focused on the technical architectural side, whereas the community one is more focused on the community processes, the governance, and healthy participation of everyone who is involved. All of these meetings have a summary that's shown publicly in a meeting notes repo on GitHub. So kind of everything is in the same area of open source, open content. On the documentation side, this has been a revamp. So the current website has been completely redone. This happened early this year, if I recall. And now there's a healthy amount of documentation. This is an ongoing effort. There's still work to be done on that side. And there's this repo docs. Everything is now written in Markdown, and Markdown is generated via Hugo server. A particular Go-based server is then published into the actual website via a CI/CD component. Everything has been revamped. Documentation side. There are topics on. There are technical topics. There are features of Unikraft, and then advice and let's say conventions and guidelines for contributors, reviewers, and users of Unikraft. All of this also happened during this year. What we've also been doing starting from spring this year, we are organizing hackathons. So the easiest one is the weekly hackathon. This is taking place online. However, in my university, we also meet face-to-face in a place in university. It takes 4 hours on Saturday. So this happens weekly on each Saturday, and we work on topics that are important at that time. Each participant lays out a day before what are the topics they are going to work on, and then they are going to work on that topic during the hackathon. Afterwards, we collect summaries for everyone, and then we publish this as a meeting note in the meeting notes repo. What we've done hackathons in universities, so it was one in Lyon and one in Aachen, and about a month from now, we're going to organize a hackathon in Munich, October 2022-23. This usually takes place for 2 days. The first day is mostly tutorials training, and the other one we have challenges, Unikraft related challenges that participants, mostly students, are going to be engaged to solve. Everything basically started with an event It was 1 year ago. It's called Unikraft Summer of Code. This was a 2 weeks workshop, 10 days, 4 hours per day. That where a set of people online were trained, and then they were engaged the community. And this is very healthy to attract potential new contributors from everyone who found working on Unikraft interesting. This year, about 3 weeks ago, we had our second edition, so Unikraft Summer of Code 2022. All of these took place online on Discord. Also, we plan, this is going to likely turn into a yearly event, Unikraft Summer of Code, but also we plan other types of workshops to take place in other universities. We are in discussion with Manchester, with Karlsruhe, and we're likely going to do others as well, kind of to promote using Unikraft, seeing how cool, interesting, and potentially something that attracts open source contributors. These are some pictures from this. This was part of Hack of Aachen. This is in UPB. We had a hackathon there. This is also in Aachen. If you could see here, this is also the Big Zen Summit. Is the link to the Zen Foundation. Unikraft starting as a Zen Foundation project. What this resulted in is a lot of student engagement, and we kind of pride ourselves and also rely a lot on student engagement in the community. So apart from students who do it just for fun, we have a connection with their, let's say, academic interest, meaning that there are quite a bunch, I think about 30 student projects that were diploma projects or bachelor projects and master projects. There are also PhD students who are involved, and they aim to both work as contributors to this and also tie their research with Unikraft. We've done student mentorship, so apart from diploma project, we advertise to students in universities to be part of a kind of a close connection with one maintainer. I'm mentoring for students, for example, and provide them with support, advice, guidelines, any form of support they require to be contributors and to use Unikraft. And this has been very, very successful. The ones that have been doing this are, I would say, full members of the community. Some of them are also in leadership position in the community. Also, starting from this year, we've been part of Google Summer of Code. This year, we had 3 students. They just completed their work. They were very, very good students, and their contributions are useful to the project. The most important part here is that apart from their work in Google Summer of Code, they are going to continue to be involved. One of them is going to do a 6-month diploma project. That's going to be a continuation from for his Google Summer of Code project. Also, people who graduated Unikraft Summer of Code, there's I think 3 or 4 of those who since then have been part of the community. So this is another way through which, using these events and hackathons, we attract people to the community. And as hackathons, we create these challenges. Students are receiving their first intro in Unikraft, and then they are able to solve, let's say, beginner-friendly challenges such as fixing bugs, warnings, creating tests, porting simple applications, creating pull requests, and getting them accepted as soon as possible. And this is something very fun for them because in the 2 weeks' time, they are able to create their own contribution and have their name as part of an commit in the open source, in an open source repository. More on the technical side, so this was most on the community side, and what's been happening and what we've been doing to increase the visibility of the project. More on the technical side, these are some recent features that have been requested for a while, and we implemented during the past year or so. A unit testing framework for internal testing of Unikraft components, a virtual memory API. Until now, it was kind of a linear mapping. Now you are able to use paging and do all sorts of interesting things with this. SMP support, this was heavily requested when we did our 0.6 release, if I recall, and it was that Hacker News post. a lot of people asked about SMP support. There's a VS Code extension. This is one that allows you to easily build and toy around with Unikraft as part of Visual Studio Code, one of the most heavily used IDs out there. And there's a component on internal metrics, we call it UK Store, such that if you do any sort of monitoring or you also want to configure or command the Unikernel as it runs, you can use this UK Store interface. So think of items such as procfs, sysfs that could be built, or monitoring interfaces that could be built on top of UK Store. So other items that we are working on, most of these are close to be complete. It will take some months to get them all done, but they are some of them are very close to completion. One of them is a tooling upgrade. Our companion tool was called Craft. Now there's a complete rewrite of this fully featured that's called Craft Kit. The hope here, the aim is to make it seem as easy as we can for potential users to try Unikraft, to see how you can download it, package it, run it, test it, do a profiling on it. This is what Craft Kit is going to be. There's going to be an early release sometime in late September, so 2 or 3 weeks from now, early October. Muscle support. Muscle is a standard library which is more featureful than what we currently are using. That's new libc. This is also planned to increase the application support. Synchronization, now that we have SMP, it's important. Integration testing to make sure that everything runs properly, and this is going to also be integrated with the CHD system. Security features, there's a bunch of them that we have enabled. Safe stack, there are ARM-based features. There's now one Google Summer of Code student worked on Shadow Stack. We also want to add the common security features such as ASLR, data execution prevention, or WXORX on this. There's current work on RISC-V support. This is currently working. It's in a draft format. Now, Eddie, who's working on this, is also providing SMP support. And we also want to increase the number of platforms supported, meaning that VMware, Hyper-V, and Firecracker are currently being worked on. Firecracker support is pretty advanced. The expectation is that in maybe 3 or 4 months, Firecracker support will be fully integrated in Unikraft. So this is where we are, but we are still facing some challenges, and we are actively working towards them. What we've seen as part of the hackathons is there is kind of a rigid, difficult, let's say, way of users to try to use Unikraft. They bump into all sorts of issues, and we need to work on making it as user-friendly as it can, improve the documentation. We are now working on adding frequently asked questions, and generally having one command or 2 commands that makes it extremely easy, or as easy as it can actually, for someone to use it. This is one of the challenges. The other one is on porting new libraries, but this is aiming to be solved with the support of Muscle. Muscle is very likely to allow us to make it more easy to port new libraries and applications. An important side is we are mostly, let's say, student-centric due to our academic background project. We are looking for experienced contributors, and what we also found and were advised on is that we need actual users, so companies and people who are going to be using the product as it is, and then the developers who work for these companies are the ones that are going to contribute to the OSS project. So we are looking into that. The other one is continuous way of improving the code quality and permeating good practice in the community. So making sure that people follow some very important guidelines with practices for doing reviews, for coding, for debugging, and adding features. Those challenges are kind of taken care of by the items that we have here. So I also been part of Open Source Summit. There was a community leadership track there, and there was a lot of discussion of chaos. These are metrics for open source projects, and I learned quite a lot of items from that, and we plan to use them in our community to see what are places, let's say, location in the community, inner workings, that we need to improve. Documentation-wise, we want to do a full API documentation, internal API. This is currently only partially done, and this is also making future contributors difficult to contribute because they don't know how the interface looks like. They need to look at the code. By having an API documentation, make things easier. The unit testing framework that we used is currently doesn't have those many tests, so we want to improve the existence of tests by leveraging UK tests. There's a discussion on platform re-architecting, given that we now have soon to have RISC-V support as architecture, and then Firecracker and Hyper-V and VMware. There's now the need to move the common parts into some sort of common folder and leave only the specific ones in their specific parts of the tree. And for kind of these guidelines and community rules, we are now discussing about code conventions. So having a common coding style throughout the project, there are some inconsistencies. And of course, improving documentation, mentioning frequently asked questions, common pitfalls, and everything that is going to make life easier and help newcomers reach that stage of a contributor as soon as they can. This is it from my side. Thank you so much. This is Unikraft project. If you search it on Google, you're going to see the GitHub page, Discord, the website, and any sort of other information is going to be available one click away. If there are any questions, I would be happy to respond.